Well, welcome to Imperfect Parenting.
Which happens to be a brand new name for
Big deal.
for Coffee Kids and Crazy.
It's true. We have changed it up on you.
We have changed it up. And we have more than just the name change.
We're changing a bunch of things.
We now have Ben here.
I'm jumping in here.
Ben is in.
We changed the name, so let's change the cast too.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're also going to change how often the podcast comes out.
This is true,
Instead of once a month, we're now going to once a week.
which is wild.
But I, Seth, will only be here once a month, and you guys will do the other 3 weeks.
We live together. That helps.
Yeah.
We see each other
We're in the
often.
same state as
Yeah.
well.
Otherwise, I
Same
have to
house.
fly in a bit more often.
Yeah, I don't know that we could do that.
Yeah.
But we were Coffee Kids and Crazy for the last 3 seasons. Seth, you've been on 2 of those seasons.
Yeah.
This is season 3 for you.
Yeah.
But we're changing it to Imperfect Parenting because
Brittney's book is coming out.
I wrote a book.
So cool.
I know. It's so exciting.
She had a baby.
You had another
It
baby.
kind of
She had
feels
a
like I
baby.
had a baby. Definitely feels like that. So
Yeah.
we're changing the podcast to Imperfect Parenting. Same idea, same concept. I mean, we're going to do a lot of the same things. The volume is, Ben and I are going to have to do this a lot more than you are.
Yes, you are.
But the beginning of the month is always going to be the 3 of us.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't get rid of Seth because we love him too much. It's too much fun having him here.
Yeah.
The more set, the better.
Right.
That's what I always say.
That's me too. Come on.
And I am outnumbered, guys.
You are
I am
outnumbered
the
now.
only girl
This is good.
on this parenting podcast, which I kind of love though, because there's a lot of female dominant parenting podcasts.
Come on, dads.
Come
Let's
on,
go.
dads.
Dads are
That's what we're
representing
saying
here.
here.
Yeah.
That's what's happening.
But we did change the name. We did change the frequency. We did change Ben. We brought him in.
I'm the same.
But
Ben.
we are not going to change our memes.
It's true.
We've always had memes
We're
that
gonna
we
make sure
love.
we keep those.
We sit here for hours laughing and chuckling.
We do.
We have a lot of memes we will not show you. We wish we
They
could.
make us laugh a lot.
I wish Lauren could be the other part of
I
this.
know, it would
because
be
it
so
would be
fun.
so much fun. We could probably get in a lot of trouble with our
Yes.
marriage memes and all sorts of things going on. But
So we have a meme for today. We've told you that we have a new name. Well, now we're going to tell you our meme. So if you're watching, you'll be able to see this. If you're not, I'll just read it.
and then you check out our socials because we always post our
Yeah,
memes
on
there.
social media, it'll be there too. This meme is just a picture with words, and it says, "Once upon a time, I was a perfect parent. Then I had children. The end."
The end. It was because it was all theory. That's how that perfect parent.
Theory and judgment of other people,
Probably.
other parents.
Lots of that.
Hence the imperfect parenting.
Yeah.
It's true. That's,
Yeah, why did you call it this?
Well, I think that's the struggle that I personally have had to walk through is the trying to do it perfect or believing I could do it perfect, and
Yeah.
then meeting with so many different parents, and the hopes that I'm going to be better than my parents and really attain something that's unattainable, which is perfection. I like to tell people, my parents are amazing. They're leaders in parenting. Everyone knows them as the relationship people. But I had sozos to do with my parents,
Yeah.
and I'm fully ready to embrace the sozos that my children will have because of my parenting. So imperfect parenting, the goal's not perfection. Really, the goal is connection over that perfection. And that's the heart, is reminding you and setting new standards that we're chasing after connection rather than anything else.
Yeah. I think it's important to be aware of, like, hey, none of us are going to get this
No.
perfect. Yeah. And that's where cleaning up our own messes comes in. That's where
Absolutely.
apologizing comes in. But we still have the goal of going, I want to do this well. I want to do this better than the generation before me. I want to grow as a parent as time goes on. I want to continue to improve, parent more and more like God in
Absolutely.
a sense as well. But understanding, yeah, you're going to mess up.
Yeah.
I think the illusion of perfection is dangerous too. Like it actually creates more problems than we need.
Yeah.
I even think about, when someone's working hard to feel or look perfect, they're actually isolating themselves. So they're missing out on all the strength they could be getting because I'm so afraid of what someone might think.
Pretending.
Yeah, exactly. So
Well,
beautiful. It's
And
exciting.
What it does to our it kind of erodes us on the inside.
Yeah.
It makes us less and less of who we're designed to be when we're trying to be like some earthly image. You know, that's the bummer about social media in so many ways is that everybody posts all the good stuff, not necessarily the hard stuff.
Yeah.
And if you post the hard stuff, you almost get judged, or, you know, people don't really know what to do about you posting the hard stuff or the real stuff. So it's really embracing what has God called you to do, who's He called you to be for your family, and doing that.
You know, I just thought of this. We didn't have this written down or planned out. Have you seen the movie Mitchells versus the Machines? No. The robots,
yes.
the AI come in and start taking over, and it's this it's this family with issues. Like, they're not perfect, they're not good. And then there's the other family that's the neighbors that are always like doing yoga, perfectly manicured, taking their Instagram photos, and you see them throughout the movie, and it's like, oh, these guys are so perfect. Instagram, everything's always good, everything's always right. And then you have this other family that ends up saving the world from the robots, who is not perfect. The imperfect family saves the world.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's about embracing, I think, that what am I supposed to be doing? Who am I supposed to be? And one of the biggest things that I think I talk about, even Ben and I's story and our struggle in marriage and trying to figure out how are we a team and how do we do this well, and then laying out kind of who do we want our kids to be.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much tension on everybody else and what we think our kids should look like, or what they should be involved in or not, or all these different things, and then really trying to know what your family was created to do and be and build. I think that's all part of the book, and so it's fun.
I love it. I think some of the language I've been using lately is I feel like God has a general vision for every Christian home that is found in the fruit of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control, which is kind of like everything we talk about. Like, hey, we're growing self-control in our kids. We're not controlling our kids. We're growing self-control in them. We're using tools to help us stay patient and help us stay kind, even when all hell is breaking loose, right? Like that's that general thing. And then I think every family also has a very specific calling. Like, you know, even with our families, you guys have animals, you guys have your own eggs, your own chickens, your own, all that. We do too. Other families, it's like, oh, your specific calling, who you specifically are to your kids, to the world around you. Oh, it's in the city. Oh, it's in a condo versus like out in the country.
Well, we have really good friends that they have an inner city ministry, and they are just massively impacting Sacramento. We've had them on the Kylo show before, the Dipmores. If you didn't watch that episode, you should go listen to it. It's amazing. But they chose to raise their kids in the city to really equip and train them on how to love the broken and how to not let the broken be part of your normal just because you're around it. How to lead in it. And I mean, they are in the worst area of Sacramento. That's where their ministry is. That's where they've lived. They actually turned their first house of raising their kids into like a housing.
For mothers and kids.
So they've you know, they're still in the area, but that's where they were. They have crazy stories of people showing up in the middle of the night, knocking on their door. But there's that family that's called to that. You know, then I have our other family way into sports. You know, their kids are going to go to college for sports, and that's what they've dedicated their life to. And I love it because I think about that kid is going to go and change the locker room dynamic because that's what they're called to. And it makes a massive difference.
And you go into a bunch of this in this book too. I mean, I've read it a couple of times now with you, as you've poured your life out into it.
It's really our lives.
That's true. You've poured our lives into it. But I think the piece right here I keep thinking about, just listening to you guys talk, is I think when we're working so hard and comparing ourselves at how we think we should be and watching someone else like that movie you just described, you know, well, they're perfect and we're less like them. We're actually missing out on being fully engaged in the call God has in our family's life and who we are and expressing that. because I'm so concerned about doing it wrong, and I'm so concerned about messing it up that I'm missing kind of the vision and the sight of seeing this family and the vision God has for us through His perspective. And so I think it's just this beautiful opportunity that and really this challenge that Brittney's laying out for us through our story of will you fight for your family from this perspective, not from the old way.
I think like one thing we've talked a lot about on here and interacted with a lot of people about is not parenting out of fear. And that whole comparison thing of like, am I as good as them? It's all fear.
Yep.
It's all parenting from fear. And this is like taking the pressure off. Like, hey, taking the pressure off from being like, am I as good as them? Comparing myself to them. How am I doing? Like, just removing that fear that perfection tries to motivate us with.
I talk about Nehemiah 4:14 in here, and that's kind of been a big pillar for us, just in knowing you've been stationed at the wall, and he puts them in family groupings, like on purpose, like this is yours to own.
Yeah.
I need you to take care of this piece. I don't need you to take care of their piece. I need you to take care of this piece.
Yeah.
And that's the piece of, if you knew your family's identity, if you knew what
Your
you're called to
place on the
do,
wall.
Yep.
and you fought for this standard and you fought for your family, then the outcome would be just a global impact of the kingdom.
Yeah.
And that's, I am so frustrated when, people ask us all the time, well, your kids are different because they were raised in this. I'm like, well, that's because we made this choice.
Yeah.
So what is your family going to be?
Yeah.
You tell me. You tell me who your family's called to be. And it is not about becoming Dahls or Serpells or even Silks. It's about, who are you? The Smiths, the Mitchells, the Begins. I mean, what is it?
Yeah.
Who are you? I want to know who you are. I want to see your family show up and impact this earth. And I think that's the thing we've got to be paying attention to as parents, is we're leading our home.
Yeah.
So how are you leading your home?
Yeah.
How are you helping really equip your family to find that identity and happen?
Speaking of Nehemiah, I love the picture in there. They had their swords and they're building at the same time. Like, you're ready to fight off stuff.
Yep, absolutely.
But you're also focused on building. Like, I'm building
we have
my
different
piece
types
of
of
the wall.
tools.
Yeah. I got to fight some things away while I build this. Like, I'm not just fighting and I'm not just building. I'm ready for both at the same time. And
I just think about even that picture of families being faithful with part of the wall, the part of the kingdom that the Lord's trusted to them, and them just doing that. And then one day they look up and they look around and there's an entire new wall protecting the kingdom.
Yeah.
There's an entire new wall that we all did, but I just did my one part.
Yeah.
And because I was faithful and we were doing a culture on purpose, to quote Brittney Serpell, this entire thing, like that worldwide experience, worldwide shift that we're praying for and expecting, happens because each family found their spot while they're fighting and building at the same time.
yeah.
So it's just a picture of, hey, lift your eyes up for a minute.
Yeah.
Look what's happening around you.
Yeah. Wow.
I tell a story that a lot of people know. It's about the 3 bricklayers.
Yeah.
And
I don't know if I've heard this.
okay, well, let me tell you.
Yeah, tell me the story.
Okay.
You have a pen and paper?
No.
It's not that long.
I can listen to the recording afterwards. Yeah.
But it's 3 bricklayers building something, the same thing. And the first person goes up to the first bricklayer and says, well, what are you building? And he says, oh, I'm just laying bricks. And he's like, oh. And he goes to the next bricklayer and says, what are you building? He says, oh, I'm building a big wall. Oh. Goes to the next bricklayer and says, what are you building? Because the question has not yet been answered. It's kind of increased in a little bit more description, but I don't really know. But the last bricklayer, when he's asked, what are you building? He says, I'm building a great cathedral. Yeah. And it's just showing the power of vision. And when you hold yourself to that standard of love instead of fear, you've got to live a life full of vision. And so his perspective of, this is what I'm building. This is what we're chasing after. That's the call for families, is you're building a great cathedral or you're just laying bricks.
Yeah.
But either one that you say and speak out is exactly what you're going to harvest.
Yeah.
And that's what parents
and
don't.
how you engage with that. Like, oh, I'm just laying bricks. Like that work dude's gonna work differently than a person who's like, this is the most pristine thing. This is important. This matters. They're gonna work differently with the bricks than the guy just laying bricks.
And I'm sitting here thinking about my own experience just as a parent. I think there's so many moments too where I have the vision for the cathedral, but I have to remind myself that's what I'm doing because it feels like I'm just laying bricks today.
Especially when you're covered in
just
snot or
making
goldfish.
breakfast.
I'm just doing some eggs for you again. But I'm actually building a cathedral. But if that vision goes away, or my own internal world is in turmoil, and I'm not dealing with that, even just as a son and human, and all the things happening inside of me, if that's not dealt with, then I'm losing sight of where we're going. So it's just I think answering the question for me over the years, and even lately, we have a almost 18-year-old. She's about to launch out in the world, and that's a whole other story. We'll do an episode on probably.
Adult parenting.
Yeah.
It's coming probably next season.
Just
an
adult, young adult.
The consistent walking out of me staying healthy, so I can keep leading in that vision, and having people around me to say, "Hey, what are you doing? It looks like you're standing still. Keep going." So
we're gonna get into that too.
Yeah,
having the right people around you.
Hey, Brittney here. Yes, you normally hear me on The Kylo Show, but I am interrupting to tell you about my book, Imperfect Parenting, Connection Over Perfection, is coming out Mother's Day. So check that out. But before that, I've got a conference happening. I know, at the beginning of May. May's gonna be great. So if you wanna come to the conference with all of my friends, Seth Dahl, our Lauren and Jason Valentin, Danny Silk, all these wonderful people are coming, make sure you go to imperfectparenting.co to find out the details, and hopefully I see you there. I do think about your perspective, of your parenting or your goal.
Yeah.
And even the tool set that you chose to get affects your parenting style.
Yeah.
And what you choose, how you choose to operate. And my goal is always to be the engaged parent. That's what I'm talking about in my book is being the engaged parent and what that really looks like, an assertive, authoritative, all those wonderful things. But I slip into the authoritarian really easy. That's my biggest problem. And what I become is not necessarily one of those three guys, but probably the micromanager and drill sergeant above them that is on a deadline that is just barking out orders.
Come on, you're building a cathedral. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Quit acting like you're just laying bricks. Get up here.
Totally. And that I'm trying to cast vision, but I'm doing it aggressively, which just incites fear. So my bricklayer just stays a bricklayer. When you look at what you're trying to build in your children, you want them to see how powerful they are and what they're capable of. But our parenting styles definitely influence who our kids see them to be.
Yeah. Okay. So authoritarian, that's what you tend to slip into. You're kind of what you're laying out in the book and what we're going to be talking about in this podcast more and more is being engaged versus authoritarian. What are some other styles people could be parenting in or slip into? Like, you probably don't slip into authoritarian, Ben.
I didn't. No, she didn't marry someone like her.
Yes.
She married someone opposite to her.
Usually. Yeah, most of the time.
So I'm naturally my tendency is that passive. We were talking earlier about some different names that have been out there. I think the best description really is the passive, that my passivity shows up, and it's really a self-protection thing, which could probably be argued for both of these. It becomes a self-protection thing because I'm scared. But two other styles that really are the same thing, that kind of go in step with the passivity, is the helicopter and the snowplow.
I've never heard the snowplow.
I'd never heard of it till today.
No, I brought it in.
But I liked it.
Introduced you to something new.
It's a great picture.
The snowplow, I wouldn't put snowplow in passive. I would put snowplow in aggressive.
Yeah.
Like, snowplow is, I will move every single obstacle out of your way so that your road is so smooth and so easy.
So you learn nothing
at all. You learn nothing. You never have challenges.
Yeah.
That one to me is like, oh, that's how you create weak children. by moving every
Easy.
challenge out of their way, moving everything away. 'Cause
Easy times.
Easy times
it's-
create weak people. So
Yep.
It's like the aggressive helicopter.
it's yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what it sounds
I mean,
like.
I feel
snowplows-
like the helicopter one is where kids are even like, oh my gosh, give me a moment to
Yeah.
even think for myself or
It's
make
true.
a decision.
Hovering.
And the snowplow parents, to me, they're different. Like the snowplow kids
That's
are
good.
like, I don't know what it is to
I don't know
have a
what
hard
struggle is.
conversation. I don't know what struggle is. I don't know what pushing through is. I don't, whether it's in sports, whether it's in school, whether it's in home with conversations. Oh, I've never had to apologize to anyone because you don't want me to unless I feel like it. So you don't require any. It can play out in all different ways. Like,
What do you think the anxiety is for the snowplow parent? What's driving that?
I think
intended.
I think underneath everything is a desire to go, I want the best for my kids.
Yes.
So I think it gets perverted. I think there's a pure desire underneath
Sure.
everything.
Yeah.
It's like, I love him so much. I want the best life for them. My life was hard. I don't want it to be so hard. And then we accidentally react and make it too easy. But I think it's that. I think part of it is, I think if I let you struggle, I'm a bad parent, which goes back to the fear, back to what other people think about us, all of that. But I do think that's an element probably, is like, I don't want you struggling because of how it looks for me, could be one. I think too, it's like, I don't have any idea what you're capable of. I do think part of this too is there was a lot of talk before. I don't know if I've heard it, but like, be careful not to break your child's spirit. And so,
yeah.
people like so over hyper aware of breaking their children that they never stretch their children, and they never, it's like, wait, I think kids are far more
They're very resilient.
very resilient, very bounce back. Like,
I mean, I think about my own father and you, raised by single
Single
moms. My dad, he just recently, we were talking about how there's 35 different men that came into his home.
yeah, geez.
And then look who he is today.
I know.
So obviously God
It
can
took a
redeem.
long time to get here,
Right.
but look at him. Yeah.
And so I think children are incredibly resilient. So it's to believe that you can remove all forms of pain. And I think that's what I hear a lot in this your snowplow example is, I don't want my child to experience pain because it's hard to watch your child in pain.
Yeah.
It's hard to
So hard.
watch
Yeah.
them, not make the team or get rejected by somebody. The school that all of our kids go to, Valor Global Online, love
Shout
them.
out.
Mm-hmm.
They're the best.
Awesome.
They're great.
So great. But Angie was talking about often we parent through our own child wounds.
That was such a good
And that's what I hear with what you're talking
Yes.
about here is so my junior high years, miserable, so heartbreaking. I was in the office every day at school crying, Mean Girls, that movie Mean Girls, that was junior high for me.
Wow.
And I saw, especially in Delaney, as she went through middle school, my own anxiety trying to interject and protect her from something because of my own wounds.
Yeah.
More aware of it now as Adeline is in middle school. And it's different because of my awareness and obviously different kids. But that, paying attention to that definitely influences also your parenting styles.
Totally. Yeah. I know for me, it's like, growing up without a dad most of my childhood, it's reaction style too. Like, I'm reacting to what I don't want. So I was like, my dad was never there. So now I can't ever leave. I had to be aware of that. Like, I'm trying to make sure I'm home and tuck my kids in bed every single night, and I never miss a game, and I never miss anything.
Well, that's exhausting.
That's exhausting. That's not healthy either.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm going to be at everything I possibly can, and I'm going to be present when I'm here, and I'm going to be so connected to you that even when I'm not here, our relationship's okay.
Yeah.
We're still together even if I'm gone. But I was that. I think that's it too, like reacting to what we don't want or parenting out of our wounds. Like, I didn't have my dad there, so I'm going to be the dad who's never gone,
Yeah.
ever.
It's perfect.
Yeah, he's perfect.
Perfect dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He doesn't go to work and he doesn't go hang out with boys in the
And he's
evening.
miserable.
Men, his other friends. Yeah.
So
Miserable.
those are all of our worst versions of ourselves, and we're going for engaged.
Yeah.
You should talk about that some more.
Engaged.
Engaged is really a connection-centered parent.
Yeah.
My goal is connection, but I have high value for boundaries.
Yeah.
I think that's we'll get into some other parenting styles or really models, I think, that are out there in other episodes. But I think for me, what I'm seeing is missing is taking all these tools and resources and making connection the heart behind it, and not being afraid of the boundaries. Because once you introduce boundaries, things get harder.
Yes.
You get pushback, you get all of this. But remembering, I'm leading. I'm the one in
That's right.
charge.
Yeah.
No one else is in charge of leading the culture except for me and my being submitted to the Lord, obviously. But when we forget, when we put connection as the only goal and don't apply the boundaries, we have a different form of chaos.
Yeah. I think overall society's in this place.
Yeah.
People don't want boundaries in a lot of places, not just in parenting. And I think a lot of it's like, oh, yeah, it's reaction. We were parenting from our wounds. Like, oh, we were all controlled. A lot of us were controlled. Not you. A lot of us.
That was still in there.
When you were little,
Yeah,
you were
little.
like your parents learned this stuff, but we were so controlled, so we swing the pendulum the completely other direction, and we're not going to set any boundaries, and that's where you get I mean, I think about it like this. I've been in countries, driving in cars with somebody that doesn't speak our language. We're in a taxi. He doesn't speak our language. There's no lines on the road. There's no curbs. There's no separation between what's the road and what's just land. And then you come into like an intersection that's not a real. There's no boundaries around the intersection. There's no stop signs. There's no stop
no
lights.
one telling anybody information.
There's
that's
nothing,
helpful.
and you get there, and I'm like I was literally at the place in this car. Like, I have to just close my eyes and pray to the Lord right now because I am so scared, and I've never been so grateful for boundaries in my entire life.
That's a great picture.
That's in family. Like, boundaries are great. Boundaries actually help connection.
They do.
So some people are like, I just want connection without boundaries. Like, that doesn't actually help your connection.
That's not.
Like, oh, here, I'll say this one thing. I don't know if we plan to say this later, but I've been realizing, like, I've talked with a lot of parents that get to a place where they literally said, hey, I kind of don't like my kids anymore.
Oh, absolutely.
And I said, if you don't have boundaries that's a behavior I don't like, it can easily move into now I have a child I don't like because I didn't set boundaries at the behavior.
And the way often I've had that too, and I've told parents, you've actually trained this child how to treat you.
Yeah.
And so you've created that culture.
Yeah.
Which it's the boundaries piece that actually begins to switch it back to what the original design is this is where safety and security comes, is that playground with a fence, a clear boundary.
Yeah.
We go from behavior issues to character development.
Yeah.
And this thing that was a behavior becomes a belief that lingers, and so they just take it on to adulthood
And an identity.
and all of that. And so being able to set a boundary, create structure, value connection. I think when we have deep connection, our boundaries are actually received better. Just the other day, been having to set a boundary with our oldest about her phone in her bedroom.
Yeah.
And it wasn't screaming or disrespect or door slamming or anything like that. It was, I know your heart for me. I don't disagree that this has been a distraction and this is the fruit that I don't want. You want to help me. Okay, I trust you.
It was about 4 words, and she brought me the phone.
Yeah.
And she
So
said,
she wasn't cleaning her room. She's getting distracted by her phone, not cleaning her room. You would like her room clean because she has a tendency. I'm just going to give context.
it's great.
And so you come to her and you give her 4 words like, hey, I want your phone till your room's clean. A little more than 4 or something like
What
that.
I actually told her, so we had a conversation recently where I was doing this on purpose, is I want to stay connected with my girl. I want her to hear my heart. And so we're talking a little bit about just the power of this phone. I told her, I said, I actually trust you with the phone. I'm not scared about what you're doing with it. I trust you with it. The issue isn't that. The issue is how much time you're giving it. And it's taking away your focus.
Taken away from,
And it's distracting you. And you're a smart girl. You're a genius.
I mean, she's even on there, reading scriptures,
Yeah.
writing poems about scriptures.
Yeah.
Listening.
Yeah.
I mean,
She's
doing
doing great stuff.
beautiful
Yeah.
things with it.
Yeah.
she's connecting with friends. I mean, it's great.
Yeah.
So we had that conversation, and she's listening, and she was really engaged. I came back a few days later. Nothing's changed.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm going to help you today.
With your focus.
I would like your phone.
Yeah.
And you can have it back as soon as your room's clean. I texted Brittney 2 hours later, said, guess whose room's clean? Mm-hmm. And she's laughing at me. And
But you have connection.
Yep.
You set a boundary. It helps her with something she also wants, focus and
a
all
clean room.
that.
She wants a clean room.
And she responds. And I was there last night when we're all talking, and you're like,
Did
hey,
she seem
good
super
job.
disconnected in any way?
No. Ben's like, hey, Delaney, good job. Clean. You complimented her on like, hey, I set a boundary.
Thank
you
you.
responded, yeah, thank you. And she was like, yeah. It was like the boundary actually strengthened the connection even more.
There you go.
It didn't damage
fresh.
it. It didn't break it.
That's fresh bread.
You set the boundary with connection in mind, protecting the connection in your head, and that's exactly what it did.
And on a bad day, the fear happening inside of me is if I have that conversation, we're getting disconnected.
Mm-hmm.
She's mad at me. We're now in a power struggle.
She thinks I don't trust her anymore.
All
No, I
that.
trust you. Hey, I trust you with your phone.
Yeah. Or a lot of times I think parents are creating the power struggle because of their heart and their approach.
Yeah.
And so those are things to be aware of. But we've already talked for 30 minutes.
I know, and I
guys.
feel like we could just keep going and going and going.
There's
so.
more to come. Don't worry.
There is
The
more.
fun thing is that, Ben and I will follow this up with some more topics around
We'll
my
just keep
book.
saying Seth said, and then Seth said.
And next time when Seth's here. But I'm excited. It's new, kind of a
honored
new
to be here.
podcast, but the same podcast in a lot of ways.
Imperfect
Come on.
parenting, connection over perfection, engaged parenting.
All
not
those
passive,
things.
not
And
authoritarian.
it's all in a book.
It's all in a book.
It's all in a
It's-
book.
So you need to buy the book too.
Come on.
Yep. It comes out Mother's Day this year. I'm super excited. I chose Mother's Day because it is, I thought about, if you're used to church dynamics, Mother's Day is the most attended Sunday in the entire year. And I work mostly with women. I think women are often the ones, I'm not excluding the men because there's two dudes
true.
at this
It's just
table right
reality.
now. But women tend to have a better heartbeat read on the home. And so, ladies, I use a lot of mom references. Fellas, I didn't leave you out. You're in there.
We need you.
We definitely need
Very
you. But
much so.
it does come out on Mother's Day because I thought, what a great gift
Come on.
for a mom. So
And
Or for
churches should
dad to
buy
buy them.
hundreds of copies and
They
give
should.
them out to
Absolutely.
the
As
moms
gifts.
on Mother's Day.
Oh, there we go.
let us know. Let us know if you need some help with that. See if we can make it happen. But all right. Thank you so much for
Beautiful.
joining us on Imperfect Parenting, where we are pursuing connection over perfection.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see you next
Beautiful.
time.